Hey, you guys. Welcome to Talk About It Thursdays. I am your host, Karen Bailey. Let me know when you're on. I would love to say hello to you guys. It's another beautiful Thursday that the Lord has kept us. Hey, Wendy. How are you? Happy Thursday. We have made it to almost another end of the week. I'm telling you, you guys, it has been trying this week, but, when I think about, what I go through just in life and just on these jobs and things of that nature, and then I think about, how good God has been, how he's always been a provider and how he's always made a way. Hey, Brandy, he's always made a way. I try not to complain, but it gets hard out here sometimes. People don't always treat you the way that you deserve or that you need to be treated. So it's not always easy to put that positive face forward, but I just encourage you all, as I encourage myself, just remember who you're doing things for. Remember you're doing it for God. Remember you're representing. Hey, Monica, remember you're representing God. Remember how blessed you are. Sometimes I think people see your shine and they hate on it. And sometimes they do their best to try to take that away from you. But what I tell people is the world didn't give it. And so the world can't take it away. So there's nothing you can do, to take that glow away from me, to take that shine away from me, because you didn't give it to me. And so we just have to remind ourselves that, there's a lot of people out here that aren't happy. And misery loves company, unfortunately. So you just have to continue to dwell on the good things that are happening in your life. And just remember, God's got your back and God is on your side. So no matter who tries to come against you or who is not treating you the way you need to be treated, just remember, you're a child of God. Just remember, in the end, you're going to win. You're going to win. It may be hard right now, but the end of the story is you will win. God declared that to be so, and it is going to come to pass. You guys, I wanted to do a topic today called Pitch a Tent, Sis. It's only temporary. Sometimes you can go through something and it just feels like it's going to devastate your entire life. But if you live long enough, if you go through enough stuff, you will realize that nothing lasts forever. It's all temporary. Nothing in this life is permanent. It's all temporary. And so what I wanted to talk to you about today is how to handle yourself when those things come upon you, so that it doesn't devastate you, so that it doesn't steal your joy, so that it doesn't steal your peace. So that's what we want to talk about today. So in this world, you guys, we live in a place where there's a lot of obstacles left and right. You're trying to do good. Seems like somebody always comes up to try to ruffle your feathers or try to block your progress or try to steal your shine. It's like it's a constant battle against dealing with people and dealing with the kind of world that we live in, dealing with the hate that we see out there and all the unrest that we see out there. So we have to remind ourselves, it's only temporary. It's only temporary. And the only person that can stop you from progressing is you. You can only allow people to do what you allow them to do. When people see that they're affecting you, and this was a hard lesson for me to learn, you guys. When people started feeling like they were affecting what I was doing, that's when they came for more. That's when they did more. But when you don't let them see you sweat, when you don't stop doing what you're doing just because they don't support you or just because they have something critical to say or because they don't like what you're doing, then they're going to have to leave you alone because they realize you don't need their validation. And it takes a long time to get to that point, and it comes from loving yourself. When you love yourself and you understand who you are to God and what God feels about you, you will no longer need other people to validate you. When you make up your mind about something, you're going to do it, and you're going to do it even if you're scared. You're going to do it even if you got to do it by yourself. You're going to do it without support because you understand if you don't believe in you, who will? So with this life of obstacles we have to deal with, sometimes we can get stuck in one place. And that's where I say, just pitch a tent. Don't build a house in some of these places that we're in because they're just temporary. Sometimes you got to learn how to pitch a tent so that when it's time to move, you move. So sometimes life will get you stuck in one place or one mindset too long. Things that are going on now like inflation, the rising cost of living. You know, some people are so focused on that. They're just trying to make it from day to day. They're trying to pay that mortgage month to month, trying to pay that rent, try to keep a roof over their head. You can get stuck there because this is real things that we're all having to deal with. And then the fact that there's an unaffordable housing market has caused a lot of people to be homeless. A lot of people are having to go live with somebody else. And so that makes you feel some type of way about yourself when you have to go and move in with somebody else because you can't make it out here on your own. And sometimes your mindset will get stuck there and you give up. You don't even want to do better. It's just too hard. And that's the thing that I don't want you to do. I don't want you to build a house in that situation. Pitch a tent. Simply because it's temporary. It's going to get better. And then the health care that we're all getting is not affordable. Everything's so expensive, from the insurance to the medications these doctors are prescribing. It's almost impossible sometimes to get what you need just to get healthy. And so sometimes people get stuck and in a mindset of, I'm not even going to try anymore. I'm not even going to worry about it anymore until something major happens. But I don't want you to get stuck there. There's always a solution to every problem. Don't get stuck there. Don't build a house there. And then a lot of us deal with a lack of faith in this government. We don't trust this government for very valid reasons. Hey, Faith. So therefore, you can get discouraged. Therefore, you can get to the point where you're just sad about our country and things that are going on. But don't get stuck in that mindset. Because just like all of this stuff is going on right now, it won't last always. Something's going to change. Some things are going to turn around. This is just temporary. So don't build a house in this. Don't get your mind stuck on this. And then the things that go on in these workplaces, people are losing their jobs and not feeling secure in their jobs, always afraid that they'll be the next person to let go. You know, it's a strange thing to know that you work really hard, but you can still be let go if somebody chooses to pull your name or to write your name down to say, okay, we're going to have to let her go. So it's strange this time because a lot of times in the past you could count on the fact that you were a hard worker. You were the person that showed up every day. But now some of those things don't even matter. When they do budget cuts, sometimes they don't care how faithful you are. They don't care how loyal you were. They don't care how many times you showed up when nobody else did. So you can't get yourself caught in that mindset to where you are all in for these jobs. Understand, a job is a job. A job is where you make your money so that you can pay your bills. Don't get all caught up in it and make a job your life, because you will be disappointed in the end. And then social media overload. Sometimes it's just too much going on social media. You won't even know what to think or how to think because you don't know what's real and what's not, what's fake news, what's AI. We don't know. We just don't know. And so you can get your mind caught up in that, and then you can lose touch with reality. And you don't want to do that either. And then we've got this thing called grind culture, where everybody is working constantly to try to afford basic needs sometimes. Sometimes you're just not making enough to be able to pay the rent or the mortgage, the car note, the kids' school, doctor bills, all of that. So you're constantly having to work just to stay ahead. And you're spending 90% of your time at work and 10% of your time with your family. And that's just not how it's meant to be. And they call that grind culture. And some people grind like that simply because they live out the outside of their means. They're trying to compete with other people. They knew they couldn't afford it, but they're going to work harder, work extra just to be able to shine like everybody else. And then there's also this issue with not being able to put all of your trust in these religious institutions. You know, we're always hearing about this pastor, that pastor doing this, that, and the other, you know, or we're hearing about this church and that church. You know, it's just hard to know who you can trust. And the church is supposed to be the place where if you can't go anywhere else, you're supposed to go to the house of God and feel safe and feel secure and feel loved. But that's not always the case. And then the shortage of mental health professionals. There are so many people out here that are just stuck simply because they have issues and they have trauma, they have conditions, and they have no way of getting treatment. So therefore they're stuck in a place that should only be temporary. You know, so those are the things that get us stuck sometimes. Those are the things that make you want to just get somewhere and sit down and stay there. But those are not the places you need to stay. God has better for each and every one of us. And so what I want to talk about today is how so often, I can honestly say I did in my past, I allowed negative situations to consume me for weeks, for months, for years. And I was stuck worrying about this and how I was going to do that. And 99% of the time while I was doing all that worrying and crying and carrying on and feeling bad about myself, God was already working the situation out. And before you knew it, I was out of that situation. And a lot of times it consumed a majority of my energy, a majority of my time. I couldn't focus for a long time because all I could see was the situation I was in or the situation before me. It took my sleep. It even took my finances, you know, because sometimes you can get yourself in situations and you're so busy trying to dig yourself out, you're spending everything you have to try to undo the mess that you've made or the mess that you've allowed somebody else. You know, a lot of my financial mess was because I co-signed on stuff and because I trusted people I shouldn't have trusted. And then when it came time to pay for things, it was all left on me. And so I'm trying to dig my way out of this hole by working harder, taking on an extra job, missing out on sleep, missing out on family time, missing out on my joy, and missing out on my peace. And that's why I say I wish I was the person I am today back then, because now I understand that trouble don't last always. And I encourage you, if you have children, teach them that when they're young, so that they don't spend so much of their life consumed by the situations that they're going to get themselves in. You know, we all have times when we're going to fail. We're all going to have times where things don't work out the way we wanted them to. But we need to have the mindset that God is on our side and that trouble don't last always. Because I know if I had that instilled in me as a young lady, my life would be totally different now. I would not have wasted so much time trying to fix this and fix that and find a way out of this and find a way out of that. I would have understood that if I trust in God and I keep the faith and I keep moving, God is going to get me out of this. God is going to make a way out of no way. And he did. But the fact that I didn't understand that, I wasted a lot of time worrying, crying, backpedaling, settling for things that I should have never settled for, settling for people in my life that did not deserve to be in my life. They didn't deserve to be in my children's lives, all because I was always trying to be the one to find the solution to the problem instead of trusting God and knowing that God is going to work things out for my good. And so when you see that something is temporary, when you know in your spirit that something is temporary, you move different. You think different. You react differently. Number one, you don't fall apart. Number two, you don't give up when it gets hard. Number three, you don't allow depression and anxiety to control your life. You know, when you understand in your spirit that you're going to go through some things, that's just part of life. Everything is not going to be roses all the time. Everything is not going to work out the way you want it to all the time. These are the things we need to be teaching our children as they grow up, so that they'll understand that disappointment or delay does not mean denial, you know, and that you are going to get disappointed about some things, and that's okay. Keep it pushing. You are going to have to wait on some things, but that doesn't mean that you won't have them later on. You just can't have them right now. And I think the big thing I see with children now is they don't want to wait. They have no patience, simply because we as parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles, you know, we want to give them everything we didn't have. But the thing we're not giving them is wisdom. We're not giving them wisdom. We're not teaching them patience. We're not teaching them long suffering. We're not teaching them that sometimes you just got to hold up a minute. Right now is not the time for that. That'll come later. But we don't teach them that. We give them instant gratification. And life is not going to treat them well. It's not going to treat them well. They're going to find out the hard way that they're going to have to wait on some things. They're going to be told no about a lot of things. And a lot of things are just not going to happen the way they want it to happen. So you may as well go ahead and start training them for that now, so that they'll understand that they don't have to give up. They don't have to sit down and settle because of a disappointment. They don't have to give up because it didn't work out the way they wanted it to work out. That way they don't end up building houses in places where they just need to pitch a tent. And then when you know something is temporary in your spirit, you begin to strategize on how to make smarter decisions, so you don't have to go through that same thing again. That's one thing. It took me a long time to understand that if I don't get the lesson the first time, I'm going to repeat that thing. I'm going to go through that again. And until I get the lesson out of it, I'm going to keep going around that same mountain, that same situation. And I did. And I just kept wondering, why am I doing the same thing, expecting different results? Because I never learned my lesson. But once I got it, I didn't have to go through that again. And then when you know it's temporary, you're going to start working on a plan B. You know, when you know that there is something else that you could have done, instead of wallowing in what did not work out, you start thinking about plan B. Okay, what else can I do? How can I try this different? You don't give up. And then you stop playing the victim. You stop rehearsing with everybody you see how it fell apart and how you did everything you could and you don't understand why this happened to you. Stop playing the victim, because when you understand that things are temporary and it's going to get greater later, you don't have time. to be a victim. You don't have time to keep rehearsing that story. I'm learning in my big age to speak what I want to see happen in my life. I'm not going to sit up and keep rehashing everybody that did me wrong, everybody that lied on me, everybody that cheated on me, everybody that mistreated me. I don't have time for that victim mentality, because that's not who God says I am. So stop acting like what you're not. I'm not a victim. Things happen to me. Some of them were really bad, but guess what? I made it through. Guess what? I'm on the other side of it. Guess what? It did not take my joy. Guess what? It did not stop me from being successful. It tried. It tried to break everything in me, but guess what? It did not work. That's why that scripture says that the weapon will form. It's going to form, but it will not prosper. But you can make it prosper with your mouth and with the things that you say and how you carry yourself. I refuse to be a victim. I refuse to let people feel sorry for me, because as long as I've got strength in my body, as long as I've got my right mind, I can do something different. I can get back everything that was taken away from me. And that's what I've done. I have literally took back everything that the enemy stole from me in my youth, simply because I refuse to be a victim, because that's not who God says I am. He says my name is Victory. So that means I'm a victor. I am not a victim. And then when you know things are temporary, you learn to manage your emotions. You can't afford to go off about something that's temporary, because what you do, you can't undo. What you say, you cannot unsay. And life and death is in the power of the tongue, and you can say some things that you can say you're sorry the rest of your life, but it won't matter. You cannot take back the words that come out of your mouth. So you need to understand, when you're going through things, this is temporary. I'm not going to put my mouth on it. I'm not going to start talking to people crazy. I'm not going to cuss people out. I'm not going to start, getting mad at everybody about everything. No, I'm going to have to ride the wave, because this is temporary. It's going to get better, because God says it will. It's going to get better. So you need to be able to manage your emotions so you can think clearly, so you can strategize on your next move. Because when you're emotional, when you're all in your feelings, feel sorry for me, want everybody to hug you and pat you, you cannot think clearly. You cannot stand up like a person who is in victory. You cannot be a victim and a victor at the same time. And then when you know something is temporary and it's going to get better, you watch what you say, and you watch what you let people say about you. People used to always try to bring up who did what to me, this, that, and the other. Girl, I remember so-and-so and how he did you. I'm not trying to hear that. You have to cut people off. That's part of my past. It has nothing to do with the woman I am today. It helped build me to where I am, but it has nothing to do with my life today. That is the past for me to use to encourage somebody else, but that's the only purpose it has. It doesn't have a real purpose in my right now. So I'm not going to sit up and entertain conversations about the bad things that happened in my life. You have to stand your ground with people, because sometimes people like to remind you of where you come from, because they feel like you doing too much, or you feeling yourself a little bit too much, or you think you something. That's fine. That's fine. But you're not going to pull me back because you didn't elevate me. And so therefore, I learned to distance myself from people that want to live in the past, that always have something negative to say, that always want to criticize everything that you do. I've learned to distance myself, and I found that I have more peace that way. I found out that I have more joy that way. And I found out I really didn't need their company anyway. I just thought I did. You know how you get used to things that are familiar. You've always hung out with that person. You've always talked to that person. But ask yourself, What is that person doing for you? Are they making you better or are they holding you back? And that'll help you decide how much time you need to spend with them. And then when you realize that things are temporary, you learn how to adapt. When I know that, hey Anita, when I know that I've just got to deal with something for a little while, there was a situation on my job, y'all. And I won't get into details, but it was a situation that I was not asked about. It totally involved me and the team that I was working with. But the person that made the decisions, did it behind my back, trying to be messy, this, that, and the other. So at first I was like, you know what? This is some bull right here. But then I made up my mind that I was only going to do my work. And I'm not taking on anybody else's work because they made a decision to split this person into doing some other things besides the work she was supposed to do. Sometimes they'll see you as a hard worker and then they'll try to dump other people's stuff on you. I was not feeling that. I was not having that. And it took some prayer for me to not stick my hands in places, because I'm one of those, I like to do things with excellence. I like to get things completed. I like to make sure things are done right. But sometimes when you're that kind of person, people will use you. People will take advantage of you because they know if they half step, you'll pick it up and take it up a level for them. So that makes them lazy. And so I had to pray about backing off and not, being so quick to jump in and help, because when I do that, I end up working twice as hard as the person that's supposed to be splitting that job with me. But anyway, so that decision was made, and I had to make up my mind that I was not going to let it affect, how hard I worked. I was not going to let it make me stay after work and be at work all the time and tired and stressed out. I made up my mind I was going to do my job, my portion of my job. I was going to just put blinders on to some things so that I didn't get tempted to reach my hands in and fix it. And when it was time to clock out, I started clocking out. And it was hard at first, but once I started doing it, I got in the flow of it. And it felt good because it took a lot of pressure off of me to know that I can still do my job and let that other person be responsible for what they do or don't do. It has nothing to do with me. Even though they're on my team, that person is responsible for their job. So anyway, so this has been going on 9 months or so. And I would pray to God. I was like, God, I don't know how long this is going to go on. I saw things getting behind and I was just like, I'm not going to touch it, not going to do it. And it fizzled out. It finally fizzled out. It was a temporary situation. And had I handled it differently, had I got in my feelings and my emotions, got mad, started running my mouth, talking trash, just letting it consume me, I would have been stressed out every day. And I would have been labeled as the person that's hard to work with or the person that's hard to deal with. Some things I feel like are done just to make you perpetuate a stereotype that people equate with someone that looks like you. And see, what I'm not going to do is allow you to put me in a box and say, oh, she's an angry black woman. Oh, she's difficult to work with. No, I took it in stride. I did what I had to do. I kept smiling. I kept taking care of the patients the way I was supposed to. And God worked that whole thing out because I realized that situation was temporary. And if God allowed me to be in the midst of that situation, he already had a solution. And it was just a place where I needed to pitch a tent because things were going to change. And they finally did change. So that's why I say you have really got to trust God. You have got to trust him with your everything. Even on these jobs, when people are making decisions that affect you, but then they don't include you, you ask God for protection. You ask God to cover you every day when you go to that job and to bless the works of your hands. And God will do it. He'll take care of you. He'll take care of you through the situation. He did it for me. So that's why I feel so strongly about saying he'll do it for you. And so when you know it's temporary, sometimes you have to adapt to the situation, knowing it won't always be like this. Sometimes you need to revisit your goals and change your approach to things. Sometimes life can take you in a whole nother direction. You cannot be stubborn and stuck and say, well, this is what I wanted to do and I'm going to do it no matter what's going on in my life. Sometimes you have to revisit your goals and you have to change your approach to things. And then you also refuse to let the situation break you. When you know that God is on your side, you don't get bitter, you get better. Simply because some things come to make you strong. It's not to break you, but it's all about how you respond to it, how you handle it, and how much you trust God in the situation. You will get better when other people expect you to get bitter. And then acknowledge how you got there in the first place and the part that you played. You know, sometimes we get ourselves in situations, especially with these relationships and stuff. You know, sometimes we've settled, or sometimes we've allowed people to talk us into these relationships and stuff. You know, acknowledge how you got there and your part that you played, and figure out how you can do things differently so you don't have to keep going through those things. And then don't be ashamed to seek the support and the help that you need to get back on your feet. You know, sometimes life will take you some places that you have so many things that are built up in you, and emotions and just concerns about things, stresses about things, you know, anxiety about things, and you don't have anybody to talk to. And so that's when you need to seek the help that you need so that you can unpack those things. Because one thing you don't want to do is have to move forward and carry all of that baggage with you. You have got to let go of some things if you're going to move on to better. You know, don't carry yesterday's baggage into tomorrow's future. Don't do that. Get the help that you need. Get healthy in your mental health. Get healthy in your spirit and in your emotions so that you can move forward and move on to better. And then speak God's word over your life, even if your present situation or circumstance doesn't look like it. And that's something I've started doing for myself, even when, like I say, you don't have any control over what's going on and who's making decisions and how they do this and how they do that. But you can speak words over yourself, because you do have control over you and how you act and how you wake up in the morning, how you present yourself on that job, how you present yourself when you go into that meeting, how you present yourself when you walk into that church. You know, you have the ability to control you. And you speak those words over you. You speak life over you. And even in the worst of circumstances, you're going to glow. Even in the worst of circumstances, you're going to shine. And people aren't going to understand why you look like you look. Why you have that smile on your face. Why you can go through what you're going through and not be bitter and not be mean. Because when you speak God's word over your life, you're telling God, I believe what you say. I believe you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And God is not a God that can lie. So he's going to do what he says. And then never give up. When you know something is temporary, do not give up. Because understand that success is often closest when you feel like giving up, when you're tired, when you're like, you know what, I don't know if I can do this. That's right. That's when you're right there. That's when you're right there at the point where you really need to keep pushing, where you really need to keep moving. So understand, temporary situations come to make us strong, but it's all about who we believe and how we react to the situation. So let's talk about moving forward from a temporary setback. We've all had those where we don't even understand how we got where we were. But it was temporary, and by the grace of God, you're in a better place now. Number one, to move forward, you got to remember the lesson. Like I said, if you don't get the lesson, you're going to keep going through that same thing over and over and over again. Get the lesson the first time. Number 2, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Sometimes we love the wrong person. We trust the wrong person. We believe the wrong person. You know, those things happen. Those things happen. And sometimes we just have a lack of knowledge. Sometimes we're just immature. We must forgive ourselves if we're going to move forward. Number 3, acknowledge the disappointment, but do not live in the pain. It's okay to cry about it. It's okay to be sad about it. But at some point, you need to shake it off, and sooner than later. Shake it off and understand, yes, it happened. Yes, it hurt. But that pain is not going to be my everyday life. It will get better. The pain will get better. And it will get less and less. But you got to keep moving. And you got to remind yourself better is in front of you. Number 4, you got to focus on what you can control and not what you can't. Focus on what you can control. Number 5, remember misery loves company. Don't sit down and get comfortable with miserable people. If they're complaining just like you don't need to be there. Because before you know it, you will get caught up and you will be stuck there for years in a miserable state, because that's all that you surround yourself with. It's miserable people. You have got to learn. You can get stuck there if you're not careful. You need to learn how to move around. You need to learn how to say, girl, I hate that happened, but let me know if you want me to help you figure out a way to do this differently, or if you come up with a plan, let me know if you want to run it past me. You know, make people do some work. Quit allowing people to sit around you and you sit around them and murmur and complain. We are supposed to elevate one another. So I may hear you out, but in a minute, I'm going to ask you, okay, so now what are we going to do? What's the plan? That's my answer for you. Because anybody I'm around, I'm going to elevate you if you allow me to. I'm going to elevate you. I'm not going to let you stay stuck where you are. I'm going to tell you to take up them stakes, get that tent, and let's go. We got places to go. We got things to do. Yes, that happened, but it's time to move past that. It's time to move forward. So our job is to be iron that sharpens iron. Sitting around murmuring and complaining about what happened, it's not you sharpening somebody. That is not you being supportive to somebody. When you're supportive, you are helping them get back on their feet. It's not about just sitting around listening to the problems, because you're not helping them that way. And then keep your emotions out of it. You know, sometimes when people are going through something, it's easy to get caught up and get as emotional as they are. Somebody's got to have a level head. That's why I say pick your friends wisely, because you don't want people coming into your situation that are as much of a wreck as you are. They can't help you get out of anything. You need people that are smart. You need people that are quick thinkers. You need people that will help you understand where you're wrong. Most people don't want friends to tell them when they're wrong, but you need people in your life that say, girl, you were dead wrong about how you handled that. You were wrong about what you said. You were wrong for doing that. That's a true friend, because that means that they are helping you to see where you went wrong so you can fix it and go the right direction. Those are the kind of people that grown folks need in their lives. And then number 6, create new opportunities by moving different. You know, sometimes you got to get out of your comfort zone if you're going to move forward from a temporary setback. You got to move different. You got to get around some people that you're not used to being around. People that are moving in the direction that you want to move. You got to stop being afraid of people that don't look like you and don't act like you and didn't grow up with you. You're going to have to be open to creating new opportunities by moving different. Number 7, remember, if it was a temporary setback, it is not a permanent failure. You will bounce back. Things happen, and you have to understand that that's life. But that does not make you a failure, and don't let people talk down to you. You know, family is bad about that, you guys, about trying to remind you of where you messed up or where you lost out or where you went wrong. Stop letting people treat you like you're a failure. You have to stop allowing people to talk to you any kind of way, and stop allowing people to devalue you. You know, one thing I have done before is when somebody was trying to make me feel less than, and this was family, I literally got my purse, got my keys, and I left. You have to love yourself enough to leave the room when you're not appreciated, when you're not valued, and when you're not loved. And sometimes that's even with your family. I've done it with my family. I've done it with my spouse at the time. You have to understand, you have to make a statement that what you're doing and what you're saying is not acceptable. I don't have to take it, so I'm leaving the room. But you got to love yourself enough to give them a message. Let them know, you want to keep doing this, I will keep leaving, I will keep walking out. Or I just may not even show up if you don't have any respect. But you got to love yourself enough to do that. And then practice self-care, because moving forward can be absolutely exhausting, because you're going to lose some friends, you're going to lose some family members, people are going to talk about you. You have got to wear your feelings under an armor, because people don't always want to see you do better. You know what I'm saying? People like to see you miserable. People like to see you crying. People like to see you not doing as well as they are. So just understand, when you start passing them up, they're going to have a problem with you. So you're going to have to be okay with them having a problem with you. You have to be okay with people not supporting you. You have to be okay with you and God. You know, that's a state I had to get in, where it's me and God if it ain't nobody else. And I'm okay with that. I'm good with that, because at least I know with God where I stand. At least I know with God, I'm not going to be betrayed. I'm not going to be lied on. I'm not going to be talked about. I'm not going to be misused. So being with God is a good place, y'all. If you can't trust nobody else, you trust God. And so self-care requires you prioritizing some quiet time to yourself, even if it's nothing but 30 minutes in your day. Give yourself 30 minutes to reset. Prioritize eating better. It's amazing what changing your diet will do to your energy level, and it'll even help you think clearer. And then prioritize your rest. This will help you build up your immune system and help reduce the effects of stress on your body. And then regain your momentum by remembering that God has not brought you this far to leave you. You know, it gets hard when you're trying to start over. I've started over 2 different times, and it was harder the second time than it was the first. But one thing I knew is that I had prayed about getting out of that situation. God helped me get out. So I knew if he helped me get out of it, he wasn't just going to leave me out here dangling. He wasn't going to leave me out here ashamed. He wasn't going to leave me out here broke. He wasn't going to leave me out here helpless. So that's one thing I did know. And so I had to regain my momentum and understand that while God is going to do what he's going to do, I had some things to do too. I had to pick my head up. I had to stop worrying about this neighbor talking about me, this friend talking about me, this church member having something to say. I had to pick my head up and walk like a child of God. And so I raised my head high. I did what I needed to do, and it's been me and God ever since, and I don't look back. And number 10, get excited again about your new life and the new possibilities. Because if you still have breath in your body, you have another chance to get it right. You have another chance at a better future, at a better tomorrow. You guys, my final thought, a temporary setback is often God's way of setting you up for a comeback. I can honestly say he did that for me. We don't always like God's methods, and I did not, but we can always trust his plan. So don't build a house where you need to pitch a tent, because sis, that situation is only temporary. Thank you guys for watching. I hope y'all have an amazing rest of the week. God bless you guys. I want to say a quick prayer for everybody. Heavenly Father, we thank you for another week. We thank you for Sister I Got You. We thank you for all the members, Father God. We ask you to just keep us covered in your blood, God. God, continue to walk with us and talk with us and guide us. Help us to take the steps in the right direction. Help us to understand those temporary setbacks are just that. They're temporary. That you're going to always make sure that we come back better, come back stronger, come back wiser. And God, we thank you that you have never left us or forsook us. And God, we thank you that we can always count on you when we can't count on anybody else. God, we thank you. We love you. We give you all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise. In Jesus' name, amen. Love you guys. I will see y'all later. Have a good rest of the week. God bless. Bye.